We are 1 week away from the release of Red Dead Redemption 2. Technically, just less than a week away, depending on what country you happen to be in. But I don't know about you, but I'm very, very excited about this. We've been waiting for nearly 2 years now since the reveal trailer came out. That's right, 2 years ago for Red Dead Redemption 2. And we're going to be playing as Arthur Morgan, the protagonist of Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, what's interesting about Arthur is the fact that we're going to be able to play him almost whatever way we wish to. Whether he's a white hat or a black hat or maybe somewhere in the middle, a gray hat perhaps. In case you're wondering what a white hat and a black hat are, well, it's an old Western terminology. White hats were traditionally the good guys, the lawmen, the heroes. The black hats were the outlaws, the bad guys, the rustlers. So that's where white hat and black hat comes in. And then, of course, gray hat, somewhere in the middle. Now, what's interesting about Arthur Morgan, from everything we've seen regarding Arthur, he does feel like a character that could easily go one way or the other. Now, the first time we actually see Arthur Morgan, believe it or not, is in the reveal trailer 2 years ago. Now, we didn't realize it at the time, but yes, it's the first time we actually see and hear Arthur Morgan.
Listen to me. When the time comes, you gotta run and don't look back. This is over.
We didn't know about Arthur Morgan back then, but that was the voice of Arthur Morgan. Now, fast forward a little bit to when we got our first delay to spring 2018. Obviously, that didn't pan out. But hey, you know, like I said, a week away. 7 days, give or take. We got an even better look at Arthur Morgan and some of the screenshots that Rockstar released. Specifically this one, where you have this dude, tall, mean as hell looking with the duster on. He's got a bandana over his face. He's dual wielding. He looks very intimidating. Now, this look of Arthur obviously kind of gives us kind of a black hat vibe. He doesn't exactly look like a good guy, which is confirmed basically in the second trailer for Red Dead Redemption 2, where we're actually finally introduced to Arthur Morgan officially.
You got some money for me, boy? I've seen your name in our ledger.
Or whenever he's talking to a young man while his mother is grieving.
Maybe when your mother's finished mourning your father, I'll keep her in black on your behalf.
And he gives this very sadistic look to the young man. And of course, he's, roughing up somebody, asking,
"Where's our money?"
When you go by trailer number 2, it definitely feels like Arthur Morgan is an absolute black hat. But fast forwarding once again to the third Red Dead Redemption 2 trailer, as well as the gameplay trailers, we get an even better idea and understanding when it comes to Arthur Morgan. Turns out he's not exactly as much of a black hat as we were originally led to believe, and we have the ability to basically craft Morgan whatever way we want. And that's what I really like about this character. From what we've seen, he could easily go any which way we want him to go. He can be that black hat, ruthless outlaw. He can also have a heroic white hat quality to him, or somewhere in the middle, like a gray hat. And what's interesting is we compare Arthur Morgan and what we're going to be able to do with him thanks to the interaction with NPCs, the ability to be friendly or antagonistic, and how we can go at so many different levels there. We can even dive down the situation. There's going to be numerous occasions when we're going to be able to either spare somebody or kill somebody, based on the honor system. And yeah, we had the honor system in Red Dead Redemption with John Marston. But the difference between John Marston in Red Dead Redemption and Arthur Morgan in Red Dead Redemption 2 is that overall, John Marston comes across as a pretty decent guy. Former outlaw, gang member, father, husband, trying to get his life back together. It just generally seems like in the events of Red Dead Redemption, for those of you that played it, you know what I'm talking about, he seems like a pretty good guy. You have options to do good or bad things throughout the events of Red Dead Redemption. You have the ability to become honorable, a white hat, or go the other way and be a black hat. But for the most part, we just get this feeling and vibe that John Marston is overall, in 1911 Red Dead Redemption, a really good guy. Now, there were plenty of times when John Marston spoke about his former self when he was younger, running with the Vanderlyn gang, and it sounded like he was more ruthless back in the day. So we're probably going to see a different side to John Marston than we're used to in Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, the third protagonist I'm going to include here is from the very first Red Dead game, Red Dead Revolver. Yes, I know, technically it doesn't really connect to Red Dead Redemption or Red Dead Redemption 2, even though they do consider Red Dead Redemption to be a spiritual successor to Red Dead Revolver, and there is some mention regarding Jack Swift and Red Harlow at campfire sites throughout the world of Red Dead Redemption. So I guess you could say Red Harlow does technically exist in Red Dead Redemption as well, to some form or fashion. Well, he was in Red Dead Redemption multiplayer. Now, Red Harlow is a lot different than John Marston and Arthur Morgan. He's very simplistic. He has, I guess you could say, a Clint Eastwood Western vibe to him, Man with No Name. At least that's how the voice actor made him sound like. Yeah, the voice actor definitely was going with a Clint Eastwood vibe. But anyways, unlike Red Harlow and even John Marston, we're going to have a lot more free reign when it comes to Arthur Morgan in Red Dead Redemption 2 regarding what we're going to be able to do and not do. However, there is something else we have to consider: the main story itself from start to finish in Red Dead Redemption 2, along with the choices we're going to be able to make, the honor system, how good or bad we can make Arthur Morgan. Now, the issue is, I feel like that despite us being able to be a pure white hat or a black hat or even a gray hat, to some degree, I don't feel like it's going to have an overall effect to how the events of Red Dead Redemption 2 play out. The big reason is because of the fact we already know that several of the characters survived the events of Red Dead Redemption 2, including John Marston, his wife Abigail, their son Jack, Uncle, Dutch, Bill Williamson, Javier Escuela, and even Edgar Ross too, unfortunately. So whether or not Arthur Morgan is good or bad, however you choose to play him, he has no control over the fates of those characters. However, there are other characters being introduced into the Vanderlyn gang in Red Dead Redemption 2 that he may have some degree of control over, depending on whether he's a white hat or a black hat or somewhere in the middle, like Hosea, Charles Smith, Lenny, Micah Bell, Pearson, Sadie, Tilly, Karen, Mary Beth, Molly, and the rest of the gang. Their fates are currently unknown. The reality is, a lot of them are probably going to die in Red Dead Redemption 2. Not all of them, but I'm sure a lot of those names I just mentioned will be ripperoni by the end of the story, sadly. Now, what it comes down to is the question of, is the choices we make as Arthur Morgan, will those choices decide who lives amongst that group of characters and who dies? That's the interesting part. So if Arthur's more of a black hat on one of your playthroughs, does that equate to certain characters in the gang surviving and other characters dying? But if you go the other way and being a white hat, would the opposite characters die and the other characters live? Or are the characters that are going to die anyways no matter what you do, and the characters that end up surviving the events of Red Dead Redemption 2 survive no matter which hat Arthur happens to be wearing, a white hat, gray hat, or black hat? Which begs the question, to what degree will the way you play Arthur Morgan actually matter when it comes to the overall story arc of Red Dead Redemption 2? That's the real question here, because as we pointed out, there are several characters that have to survive the events of Red Dead Redemption 2 in order to go on to Red Dead Redemption, the sequel to Red Dead Redemption. I know, it's confusing. Most of you get it by now. But the others are up in the air. Their fates unknown. And whether or not we as Arthur Morgan, being a white hat, a black hat, or a gray hat, can decide those fates by our actions in the world of Red Dead Redemption 2 remains to be seen. But at the same time, Arthur Morgan seems to be the perfect character for us to play this game however we see fit. The customization for the clothing, the weapon options, as well as the Arthur Morgan we aspire to be. Do you want to be the hero, the white hat? Do you want to be the ultimate villain, the black hat? Or are you going to play it somewhere in the middle and be a gray hat? Which hat do you plan on wearing? Feel free and let us know below in the comments section.